It all began with a feeling I couldn't quite name, like trying to hold water in my hands. The more I tried to grasp it, the more it slipped through my fingers. At the time, I didn't know it was control I was chasing. I thought I was just being responsible, doing what needed to be done, planning, organizing, fixing things before they could break, anticipating outcomes, preparing for disasters that hadn't happened and might never come. I was the type of person who needed to know what's coming next. I made lists, backups, and escape routes. I couldn't sit still in uncertainty. Even in conversations, I was already preparing responses before the other person finished speaking. I wasn't living, I was bracing. It came to a head during a period in my life when everything I had carefully constructed began to fall apart. My job, my relationship, my sense of purpose. It was like standing on ice and feeling the cracks race outward beneath your feet. No matter how hard I tried to control the situation, to force it back into the shape I wanted, kept slipping away. And the more it slipped, the tighter I clutched. I remember one particular moment. It was late at night. I was sitting in my car outside my apartment, too exhausted to go in, yet too restless to drive away. Rain tapped against the windshield in a soft rhythm, and for the first time, I realized how tired I was, not just physically, but so deep weary. I had been carrying this invisible burden of control for so long that I forgot what it felt like to let it go. I was trying to hold together a version of life that no longer existed. In the days that followed, I began noticing something strange. The more I tried to control others, the more disconnected I became. The more I tried to control outcomes, the more anxious I felt. It was as if control was a leash I had tied around my own neck. That's when I stumbled upon a Zen story, seemingly simple, but it pierced me. It went like this. A young monk asked his master, "Master, how can I find peace?" The master smiled and said, "By letting go." "But I don't understand," the monk replied. "Letting go of what?" "Everything," the master said. Everything. I remember reading those words over and over again. They felt radical, terrifying, even letting go of everything. That sounded like chaos. It sounded like surrendering to disaster. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had already been living in disaster, one of my own making. The illusion of control had become a prison. You see, the trap of control is subtle. It dresses itself as safety, responsibility, even love. We say we want to help others, guide them, protect them, but often it's just fear wearing a clever mask. Fear of losing what we think is ours. Fear of life happening without our permission. And the irony is, nothing was ever in my control to begin with. Not really. People change. Circumstances shift. Even my own emotions come and go like tides. I couldn't control what others thought of me, how long someone stayed in my life, or even whether my plans would survive the next sunrise. But I still tried. One clung to false certainties. I bargained with the future. I thought that if I just did everything right, said the right words, took the right steps, I could bend life to my will. I now know that's not wisdom. That's fear, dressed as effort. It wasn't until I began loosening that grip one finger at a time that something curious happened. Space opened up. Silence returned. A kind of peace that had nothing to do with guarantees started blooming inside me. I remember another moment, much quieter this time. I was sitting in the park, watching the wind move through the trees. The branches didn't resist. They didn't shout at the storm. They just swayed, bowed, and waited. It was then I understood. Life isn't something to master. It's something to dance with. That realization didn't make me passive. It made me present. Control is a habit. And like all habits, it takes time to unlearn. But the first step was seeing it for what it truly was, a trap. A beautiful, well-decorated trap that promised certainty but delivered suffering. The more I chased it, the more I lost my way. What I thought was strength planning, managing, fixing was often just my fear of being with what is. I didn't know how to sit with discomfort. I didn't know how to trust. Not life, not others, not even myself. But Zen doesn't ask for blind faith. It invites awareness, gentle awareness. It doesn't say, stop controlling immediately. It simply asks, what are you really holding on to, and why? And slowly, I began answering. I saw that underneath all my control was a deep longing to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel like I mattered. And that's not wrong. That's human. But control had never truly given me those things. It had only distracted me from how lost I felt inside. Letting go didn't mean giving up. It meant giving into the flow, the now, the unknown. It meant trusting that even if things didn't go according to my plans, they might still be okay. Or perhaps even better. That was the beginning, not of some grand spiritual awakening, but of a quieter relationship with life. One where I don't always have to know, to fix, or to grasp. Where I can sit in my car on a rainy night and just breathe. Where I can watch the trees and remember that surrender isn't defeat, it's the start of something softer, truer, freer, And that's where the real journey began. For a long time, I thought control was power. The more control I had over my circumstances, my emotions, and the people around me, the stronger I felt. I believed I could bend life to fit into the narrow lines I had drawn for it. But as I stood there, watching my carefully arranged world unravel thread by thread, I realized something I had refused to accept before. I didn't really understand what control was, or more accurately, I had misunderstood it completely. Control isn't real. It's an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to feel safe in a world that is constantly changing. And once that story starts to crack, we panic. We double down. We try harder. But the more we grasp, the more we suffer. There's a Zen proverb that says, "Let go or be dragged." I used to laugh at how blunt it was. When you try to hold on to a moment that is already gone, you don't stop time, you just get hurt. You don't preserve peace, you destroy your ability to experience it. In Buddhist teachings, there's a word that shifted my understanding completely. Anakim, permanence. Everything is impermanent. Nothing stays the same. Not your job, not your health, not your relationships, not even your identity. We are all flowing moment to moment like a river. But we try to build dams with our thoughts, trying to stop the current. And in doing so, we cut ourselves off from the natural movement of life. I remember when someone I loved deeply chose to leave. There was no betrayal, no drama, just the quiet truth that they needed to walk a different path. I could have accepted that with grace. Instead, I tried to hold on. I revisited conversations. I replayed old memories like broken records. I analyzed everything they ever said, looking for signs, for clues, anything that could help me go back and fix it. But there was nothing to fix. It was simply time. Yet, I couldn't accept that. My illusion was that if I just understood enough, controlled enough, loved enough, I could make it last. That's when I realized how much of my pain came not from the situation itself, but from my refusal to let go of my version of it. Control, I've learned, isn't strength. It's fear of what will happen if I don't hold the steering wheel, even when the road disappears. But true power isn't in control. It's in awareness. It's in presence. It's in the ability to see clearly, without attachment. There's another teaching in Buddhism that struck me deeply on that not self. We don't possess a permanent, unchanging self. We are not fixed. We are not static. Yet, we cling to identities and roles and images of who we think we are. We say, "I am this kind of person," but who were you 5 years ago? Who are you when no one's watching? Who are you beneath your fears and ambitions? When I thought about these questions, I noticed something startling. Much of my desire to control wasn't about the world outside. It was about maintaining a version of myself that felt secure. I needed to be seen a certain way. I needed to be right. I needed to be in control, to feel worthy. And that illusion was incredibly fragile. Zen doesn't shout, it whispers. It offers a mirror, not a lecture. And in that mirror, I saw the tight fists I had been holding everything with. I thought I was being responsible. What I was really doing was resisting reality. There's a story about a Zen master and a cup of tea. A student comes, full of opinions and questions. The master begins pouring tea and keeps pouring even after the cup overflows. The student cries, "Stop, the cup is full." And the master replies, "Exactly. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?" That story haunted me. My cup was overflowing with plans, expectations, assumptions, and fear. I had no space for new understanding because I was so sure I had to control everything to survive. But life doesn't work like that. The more full your cup, the less you can truly taste. One afternoon, while walking along a narrow forest path near a Zen retreat center I had visited, I heard the wind moving through the leaves like waves against the shore. No two leaves moved the same way, responded to the wind uniquely, yet there was no resistance. That moment taught me more than any book that the trees don't control the wind, they move with it. That is the essence of Zen. And slowly, the illusion of control began to fall away. Not all at once. Sometimes I still reach for it, especially when I feel afraid. But I've started to catch myself. I've begun asking, what am I really trying to control here? And what would happen if I didn't? Usually, the answer isn't disaster. It's space. It's quiet. It's peace. Letting go of the illusion of control doesn't mean we become passive. It means we become real. It means we stop manipulating the moment and start meeting it. It means trusting that we don't need to hold the sky in place for the stars to shine. The truth is, control was never about the world. It was always about me, my spheres, my stories, my desperate need for certainty. But life isn't a puzzle to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. As the Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." When I let go of control, I return to that beginner's mind, Pew. I become open again, curious, receptive, alive. I no longer need to have all the answers. I no longer need to fix every flaw, prevent every pain, or plan every second. I can breathe. I can simply be. And in that simple being, something incredible unfolds. The realization that I am not separate from the flow. I am the river. I am the wind. I am the changing moment, and there is nothing more to control. There was a moment when I sat quietly, staring at the falling leaves outside my window, and something in me finally softened. I watched each leaf let go of the branch without resistance, without clinging, without a scream. And it struck me, nature has no fear of release. Only we do. Letting go sounds so simple. People say it all the time. Just let it go, as if it's a switch you flip. But for me, it wasn't simple at all. Letting go felt like losing. It felt like giving up control, giving up identity, giving up everything I thought defined me. But over time, I came to see that letting go isn't a loss, it's a return to something softer, freer. The first time I truly let go was not out of wisdom, but exhaustion. I had been holding on for so long to a relationship that no longer nurtured me, to a job that drained me, to expectations I couldn't meet, and two versions of myself that I no longer recognized. I was breaking under the weight of it all. One night, in the solitude of my room, I whispered to the darkness, I don't know what else to do. And that moment of surrender, quiet and unremarkable as it seemed, became the turning point. I didn't realize it then, but that tiny moment of saying, I don't know, was me loosening the first finger of my grip. In Zen, there is a story of a man hanging from a cliff by a single vine. Above him, a tiger waits. Below him, another tiger. He notices a strawberry growing nearby. He plucks it, tastes it, and says, delicious. That story puzzled me for years. Why would anyone enjoy a strawberry at such a desperate moment? But now I understand. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring danger, pain, or uncertainty. It means not letting fear steal the beauty of this moment. It means tasting life fully even when you're hanging by a thread. I began to see that letting go wasn't a one-time event. It was a practice of loosening, softening, and releasing again and again. I let go of old resentments, not because they were resolved, but because they were rotting me from the inside. I let go of the need to be understood by everyone, because that need was shaping me into someone I wasn't. I let go of the image of a perfect future, because that image was blinding me to the grace of the present. Each time I let go, a little more light entered, a little more space. It wasn't dramatic. Sometimes it was just a breath, a choice to not respond with anger, a choice to forgive silently, a choice to stop trying to force something to work. Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment, from clinging to things, people, identities, and outcomes. When we hold too tightly to anything, we suffer the moment it changes, and everything changes. I remember once clinging to an opportunity that slipped through my hands. I felt crushed, rejected, disappointed, ashamed. But in the months that followed, something unexpected bloomed in the space that loss created. A path I hadn't even imagined began unfolding. That's when I learned that letting go doesn't destroy life. It clears the path for it. There's a kind of faith required in letting go. Not blind faith in a deity or destiny, but a quiet trust in the unfolding of things. A trust that says, even if I don't understand this now, I don't need to fight it. Letting go also means letting go of the inner narratives, the voice that says you're not enough, the story that says you should have done more, been more, achieved more. They are habits, and like any habit, they lose their power the more we witness them without feeding them. There were mornings when I'd wake up feeling that tight knot of anxiety in my chest. My first instinct was always to fix it, figure out what was wrong, make a list, solve the problem. But slowly, I began trying something different. I sat with it. I didn't label it good or bad. I didn't try to force it away. I just breathed and said to myself, this too belongs. This too can stay. This too can pass. Letting go is not an escape. It's an embrace. An embrace of reality as it is. A willingness to meet life on its terms, not ours. There's a deep freedom in that. When you stop trying to manage everything, you begin to notice the quiet miracles, the breath that keeps arriving, the sky that keeps opening, the silence that keeps holding you. In the practice of Zen, monks sweep the same floors every day, rake the same gardens, bow to the same statues. Not because the floor is dirty, but because the act itself is a meditation in presence. Letting go is like that. It's a daily practice of releasing the dust of ego, fear, and attachment. And as you release, you begin to return to something ancient and alive within you. A stillness, a clarity, a joy that isn't loud but steady. I won't pretend I've mastered letting go. Some days I hold on tighter than I realize. I reach for control, certainty, validation, but I've learned to catch myself. I've learned to ask, is this worth the weight I'm carrying? And more often than not, the answer is no. Letting go, I've found, isn't something you do once. It's something you live. a path you walk, a rhythm you learn. And with every release, you come closer not to some ideal version of yourself, but to your truest one, the self that is not bound by fear or past or illusion. The self that is spacious, gentle, awake. And so now, when the wind rises, I don't try to stop it. I let it move through me. I let it carry what no longer needs to stay. I let it teach me how to fall like the leaves, not in despair, but in grace. This, I believe, is the path to freedom, not in holding, but in letting go. There was a time I believed that letting go had to be dramatic, like dropping everything and disappearing into the mountains. I thought it was something you did all at once, something bold and final. But the more I walked the path of Zen, the more I realized that real letting go happens gently, silently, and often in the most ordinary moments of life. Zen doesn't ask you to escape the world. It invites you to see it more clearly. It doesn't demand that you renounce everything. It asks that you stop clinging. And it offers simple practices, subtle, quiet gestures of presence that slowly begin to loosen the grip of attachment and fear. For me, the beginning of this journey started with a breath, just the breath. I would sit each morning in stillness before the world woke up and simply breathe. Not to control it, not to deepen it, just to notice, inhale, exhale, the gentle rhythm of life moving through me. There were mornings when my thoughts raced like wild horses, memories, regrets, worries about the day ahead. But I kept returning to the breath, like coming back to the shore after being swept out to sea. Breath became my anchor, not because it stopped the chaos, but because it gave me something real to return to. This is one of the first Zen practices I learned, returning to the breath again and again, noticing the rise and fall of the belly, the coolness of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale. This practice taught me that letting go is not about pushing thoughts away. It's about not holding on to them, watching them come and watching them go, like clouds moving across an open sky. In those early days, I also began to practice walking meditation. It sounds simple, just walking slowly, mindfully, but it changed the way I experienced time. Instead of rushing from one task to another, I began to feel my footsteps, the ground beneath me, the way my arms moved as I walked. Each step became a moment of letting go of haste, of distraction, of tension. I would whisper to myself with each step, here, now, just this. Letting go through movement. Another gentle practice was noticing space. We often focus on objects, people, thoughts, but Zen invites us to notice the space between them, the silence between sounds, the pause between breaths, the stillness beneath activity. That space is always there, and in that space, I began to find a different kind of freedom, not in doing, but in being. I remember one afternoon, I sat by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. I had no agenda, no phone in hand, no to-do list calling me, just presence. That moment didn't change the world, but it changed me. Zen also taught me the practice of non-resistance. Life offers us moments we like and moments we don't. The tendency is to cling to the pleasant and push away the unpleasant. But this resistance creates suffering. So I began to sit with discomfort, anxiety, sadness, even boredom, without trying to change it. I would say, silently, this too is welcome. It was hard at first. My instinct was always to fix or flee. But slowly, I noticed that even the heaviest emotions became lighter when I stopped fighting them. One of the most powerful Zen practices for letting go is simply sitting, called shikantaza in Japanese, or just sitting. You sit in stillness, eyes open or half closed, and you don't try to concentrate on anything. You don't try to be peaceful. You just sit. You let thoughts come and go. You let the world be as it is. First, it feels pointless. Your mind screams for a task, a goal, something to achieve. But that's the beauty of it. It's a radical act of non-doing in a world addicted to doing. In that stillness, I began to experience something deeper than peace, a quiet sense of wholeness, a feeling that I didn't need to become anything else. I didn't need to solve or fix or improve. I just needed to be. Zen also offers the practice of mindful rituals, simple acts done with full attention. Making tea, sweeping the floor, washing your hands. I started approaching daily tasks with reverence instead of haste. Instead of rushing through dishes, I began to feel the water on my skin, the texture of the plate, the warmth of the soap. It became a meditation. In that presence, the mind softens, the heart opens, the grip loosens. Letting go became not an effort, but a side effect of being here fully. There's also the practice of compassionate awareness. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is the harsh voice inside, the one that criticizes, compares, condemns. Zen teaches that we can meet even that voice with kindness. Instead of fighting it, we bow to it. We say, "Ah, here you are again. You may stay, but I won't follow you." One day, during a difficult week, I looked into the mirror and simply said to myself, "You're trying." That's enough. It was one of the most freeing things I'd ever done. Letting go isn't always about what's outside. Sometimes it's about the weight we place on our own hearts. Another practice I embraced was silence. In the past, I filled every empty space with sound music, podcasts, conversations. But Zen values silence not as absence, but as presence. In silence, I began to hear the whispers of my own soul. I began to notice how much noise I had been carrying inside. Letting go through silence, letting go through simplicity, letting go through stillness. I won't pretend these practices are always easy. Some days I forget. I fall back into striving, clinging, controlling. But Zen doesn't judge. It simply invites us to return, to begin again. Every breath is a new beginning. Every moment is a chance to loosen, to soften, to let go. And in time, I realized something beautiful. The more gently I approached the world, the more gently the world seemed to approach me. I didn't need to force peace. I just needed to stop resisting it. Zen doesn't promise a life without pain or uncertainty, but it offers something deeper, a way to meet life with open hands, to bow to each moment as it is, and to walk lightly in a world that's always changing. That is the gentle path of letting go, not with force, not with fear, but with quiet trust, with presence, with love. And every day, in every small act of awareness, we take another step down that path. There was a morning when I woke up and didn't feel the familiar weight on my chest. No urgency, no list pressing against my mind. No need to fix the day before it even began. Just the gentle light filtering through the curtain, the quiet hum of life outside, and something new, or maybe ancient, stirring within me. Ease. It hadn't arrived with a bang or revelation. It had crept in quietly, like dawn. After months of letting go, of sitting, breathing, failing, returning, I had unknowingly stepped into a different way of living. Not a perfect life, not a painless life, but a freer one. One that moved with the rhythm of things, not against it. This is what Zen had been whispering to me all along. Life is not a problem to solve, but a process to enter, a dance, a flow. And we suffer when we forget that before I lived like I was pushing a boulder uphill. Every achievement was followed by anxiety. Every calm moment shadowed by the fear it wouldn't last. I was always preparing for life, but rarely living it. I believed peace was at the end of a long road paved with effort. I didn't know it was already here, waiting in the pause between thoughts. Now I live differently. I move slower. 1. Listen. More, I don't try to hold onto everything. I've learned to let moments rise and fall. Like waves, I no longer need to fight. There's a story in Zen about a man crossing a river on a raft. When he reaches the other side, he picks up the raft and begins carrying it on his back. A passerby asks him why, and the man says, "This raft helped me cross the river. I can't leave it behind." Zen teaches, let go of what has served its purpose. That story became a mirror. How many things was I still carrying simply because they had once helped me survive? Old habits, old roles, old fears that they had brought me this far. Yes, but they were never meant to be carried forever. And so, piece by piece, I began to set things down. Living in flow means meeting life with open palms, not clenched fists. It means responding instead of reacting, trusting instead of controlling. And it means listening not just to others, but to life itself. Life speaks if we are quiet enough to hear. Sometimes it comes as a gut feeling that says, pause here. Sometimes as a gentle pull toward a person or path. Sometimes as a door closing, not to punish, but to protect. This way of living is not about passivity. It's about harmony. In music, the beauty is not just in the notes, but in the space between them. I used to try to fill all the space. Now, I honor it. There's a Zen phrase: when walking, walk. When eating, eat. Simple. Almost too simple. But it changed the way I live. Before, I would eat while scrolling my phone, walk while planning the next task, talk while waiting to respond. My body was here, but my mind was always somewhere else. I was split. Now, I try to let myself be fully in what I'm doing. When I drink tea, I taste it. When I speak, I listen to the sound of my own voice. When I feel sadness, I sit with it, like an old friend who just wants to be heard. This way of living doesn't promise constant happiness, but it gives you wholeness. You no longer reject parts of yourself. You no longer treat the hard moments as mistakes. Everything becomes part of the flow: joy, loss, confusion, awe, and you learn to ride it. Not with control, but with trust. I remember once walking into a forest after a long, difficult week. My mind was loud, my heart heavy. But as I walked deeper into the trees, something shifted. The forest didn't ask me to be okay. It didn't ask me to fix anything. It just welcomed me. And in that silence, I felt life moving through me again. That is the flow, the natural movement of things, unhindered by force or fear. Living this way also changed how I relate to others. I used to expect people to behave a certain way, to meet my needs, to follow my script. And when they didn't, I would feel hurt, disappointed, even angry. Now, I try to see people as rivers, moving, changing, beyond my control. I meet them where they are, not where I want them to be. And when they leave, I let them go, not because I don't care, but because I finally understand that love doesn't cling. It holds with open hands. I also learn to forgive more easily, not just others, but myself. To stop writing permanent stories from temporary moments. In this new way of living, I've made peace with uncertainty. I don't need to know what's coming. I don't need every question answered. I just need to stay close to the present, to walk with awareness, and to trust the current that carries me. Not Zen calls it no mind, a mind not fixed, not stuck, not tangled, a mind that's like water, clear, fluid, reflective. When your mind is like water, it doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means you finally become yourself before the world told you who to be. There are still days when I fall back into the old patterns, grasping, controlling, rushing. But I see it sooner now, and I return. Always, I return. That is the path. Not perfection, but returning. And each time I return, I am met with silence, with breath, with life as it is. This is the way of Zen. Not somewhere far, not someday later, but here, now, in the flow. And I've come to see that the flow of life is always kind. Even when it's fierce, it doesn't punish. It teaches. It doesn't abandon. It invites. It doesn't demand that we be more. It just asks that we show up with presence, with humility, with open hands. So now, when I stand by the window in the morning, I no longer plan the day before it begins. I just watch. I just listen. I just breathe. And in that simple breath, I live.